Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to my shop. Today I want to talk about wooden body planes. They are kind of scary to a lot of people. How do you adjust them? How do you move the iron in and out and side to side? And why is it that hitting a plane with a hammer is a good idea? Let's dive in and take a look at it. Now this is a coffin smoother, so it's a smoothing plane. Coffin plane, it's due to its shape, looks kind of like a coffin. This was sent to me by a fan of the channel, so I'm actually going to be restoring it on Saturday. You'll see the video of bringing it back to life and turning it into a usable plane. But today I want to talk about how exactly do you adjust this. Now there are no adjustment levers or knobs or any way to actually move the iron around. So let's actually take this apart and show you how to do it. Now I can pull on this all I want and I'm probably not going to be able to get it to come out. There are two different ways of extracting an iron. Number one, I can hit it from the back, or number two, I can hit it down on the toe. And so usually what I like to do is grab the iron and wedge and then tap the toe. And it comes out. And just like that, we have this apart. Now you have a wedge, which puts the down pressure on. So this basically is the lever cap. And then we have our iron and chip breaker. And in this case, the chip breaker doesn't actually adjust the plane's depth because there's no hole for a knob to come into. But it still goes on the same way. Now let's talk about the hammer for adjustment. This is my most common plane adjusting hammer. It is a very small head. It doesn't provide a lot of force. It's something that I can very easily adjust. Now a lot of people are really going to complain about this being a metal head, hitting the metal iron. And yeah, if you're a perfectionist, that is going to be a problem. And so a lot of small plane adjustment heads either have a brass head or they have a wooden head, and you'll have a steel body. But for most of the time, I really like using this one. It's very efficient. And on the back of a lot of them, you'll actually see this odd shape, and that is for popping out the wedge. You can actually hit right here. If this is really stuck and it's not coming out hitting the toe or the heel, you can actually come in and pop it out by hitting it that way. One of these days I will probably get a plane adjustment with a brass head or a wooden head. But for a lot of time I'm actually just going to use a rawhide hammer. And this is commonly used for leather working. But for this it actually works really well. It's a nice and soft head, so I'm not going to be ruining my steel. I'm not going to be banging up my wood. The only problem with this is it's got a lot of force. When I really hit something, I'm going to be moving things and I have to be very careful not to hit them too hard. So let's put this back together. We're going to slide the iron in, and I actually like to put my finger right down here, being very careful not to slice my finger. Slide it in like that. Or sometimes I'll set it down here on the bench and slide this down in until it touches the bench. Then we'll put the wedge in. And I want to back the iron off just a little bit. I don't want the iron all the way down. I don't want it coming out. I'm going to push this wedge in until it's finger tight. Make sure on the bottom that my iron isn't sticking out past the back. If anything, I want it to be flush with the surface or retracted ever so slightly. And then we're going to tap it forward. I'm going to keep my fingers here and they'll let me know where the iron is. And now, a little more, right there, I'm pretty close to flush with the surface here. So I'm going to set my wedge, and anytime you hit the wedge, you're usually going to be driving the iron forward just a little bit as well. So I like to keep the iron back just a little bit past where I want. Set the wedge, and now it is good in place. Let's take it over and test it. So we'll grab the plane and go down the wood and see if we get anything. And we got nothing. So our iron is not extending out far enough. So I'm going to take this and give it a light tap. Tap this, set the wedge, and now we're going to go. And with that, I actually have a bit too heavy. Now this would be a good general moving, but it's not a great smoothing curl. It's a little bit thick. So if I want to back it off, what I can do is tap the nose. And then we can set the wedge again. And we'll give it a try, and this time I backed it up just a little bit too far. And you're going to do this until you really get a key for it. You'll go in and out. And so this time I'm just going to do one tap. Wedge. Nothing. One tap. Wedge. Ah, there we go. Now we're getting some light shavings. Yeah. See, that's a smoothing shaving. I like that. That's good. But that is right in the middle of the iron. So if I move over to one side, let's cut on this side of the iron. On that side, I'm getting a little bit heavier curl. And on this side, I'm not getting anything. So that means our plane is turned this way with this side of the iron sticking down farther. I want to actually turn it back this way. So I can do that by tapping here, set the wedge, try it again. Now I'm getting a shaving on my side, a really, really light one. And I'm getting a little heavier shaving on that side, so I need to move it over just a little bit more. And there we go. Now we've got shaving on that side, shaving on that side, and I'm getting about the same thickness on both sides. And our plane is set up and ready to go. So let's talk about what happened here a little bit. Either I can tap it here or here to retract the iron. I can tap the wedge down to seat it down in a little bit harder. I can tap the back of the iron to drive it down a little ways, or I can tap the side of the iron one way or the other to shift the iron side to side as a lateral adjustment. As long as you understand where you tap the plane does what to the plane, you'll be able to adjust it. Then it comes to the art of learning how hard to hit it. And usually you want to impart as little pressure as possible. So I'm using a tiny little hammer here, and I'm just giving it light taps when I want to move it. I'm not really hammering on it, I'm just tapping it. And little bits of movement will allow you to get a very fine adjustment. The problem most people have is they tap it too hard and they'll drive it out, and now I'm taking too thick of a shaving. And then they'll hit it here and they'll back it up, not get anything. And then they'll drive it down in again and they're taking too thick of a shaving, and then they'll back it up and they're not getting any shaving. And you go back and forth with those, and what you want to do is just do very light taps in between. And that little tap right there was enough to actually give me a slightly heavier shaving. And you can really detail these in and get a very accurate amount of shaving just by learning how much to hit it. And that's really a skill that the only way to learn it is to feel it and start to experiment, play around with it, and eventually you'll get the hang of it. The same thing then goes for a molding plane. If I want to extract the iron, I'm going to tap it up here on the nose or back here on the heel. If I want to drive it down, I can tap the iron back here on the tang. And this time I'm sticking down too far, so I'm going to tap it back here and tap it back there, and then tap the wedge in and try and seat it in. It's the exact same positions, it's just there's smaller spots to hit it. The only difference with this is the lateral adjustment. You're really not going to get much lateral adjustment, and most molding planes have the iron being flush against one side or the other. So in this case, I want this iron to be flush up against the back side of this channel, and so I'm going to use the wedge back here to tap it that way and seat it down against there, rather than trying to adjust the lateral adjustment on it. Learning to adjust a wooden body plane is a skill, and once you get it down and you start playing with it, you start to get that feel for how much should I tap it to get what I want out of it. And so I can talk about this all one side and down the other, but until you actually go out and experience and feel how much does this hit cause the iron to move, it's one of those things you just got to learn and play around with. So on Saturday, I'm going to have a video about restoring this plane and cleaning it up, getting it back to functionality, because there are a lot of wooden body planes out there that are relatively cheap, but with a little bit of work, they can do what you want them to do, and they can be a great user that can accomplish a lot of things in the shop. So I hope you liked the video. If you do have any questions, ideas, concerns, please let me know those down below. I know this is one of those topics that just brings up a lot of other ideas and questions. I'll try and answer as many of them as I possibly can. On top of that, I want to say a huge thank you to the patrons on Patreon, members here on the channel, people who've clicked that join button. You really are the reason why I can keep putting out videos like this. Every Thursday we're doing a tool talk, and that's because of patrons and members. So thank you. If you do ever meet anyone scrolling over here on the side, tell them thank you. And on this one, I want to give a special shout out to Bernard Ducksworth. You'll see him a lot with the duck down in the comments, and he is the one who provided this so I could do the talk through today. So thank you for that, and I'll be sending it back to you here soon. Hope you like it. So on that note, thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day. In the age of Corona, you really don't want to have a coughing plane. It's better to have a coffin plane.